Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be specifically talking about the current state of Kate Welch's participation on the Dungeons and Dragons design team. Okay, and this is based on some recent tweet, a very important recent tweet that she made, that, in my opinion, directly impacts the future of Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition. All right. So let's get into it. So before we go a step further, today I'm going to be talking about Kate Welch and 4 distinct events that have happened in her life that she has talked about publicly on Twitter, that she has projected onto her Twitter account, which she has thousands of followers on, and she's chosen to make these events public, right? It would be wrong for me to talk about Kate Welch's personal life, personal private life, but this isn't her personal private life. This is her personal public life, right? And it's important because increasingly with creators, because of the shape of our current media, because of the shape of modern media, our personal lives blend very, very closely with our public lives, and that's really happening very specifically with Kate Welch, right? Mike Mearls is in the same boat, right? He shares a lot about his personal life. I know what Mike Mearls' dogs look like, I know what sandwiches he likes to eat, right? And the reason why is, again, today, based on our media platforms, our personal lives are very, very close to our public lives often, especially if we are creating incredibly huge, valuable products, which Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition will be a hugely valuable, incredibly public, incredibly important product, right? Which both Mike Mearls and Kate Welch are positioned to work on, if they're not already working on it. Okay, so let's talk about that. So the 4 events specifically that I'm going to be talking about in Kate Welch's life. Kate Welch is a member of the Dungeons and Dragons design team. She joined that Dungeons and Dragons design team almost exactly a year ago, at the very, very beginning of 2018. Okay, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So that's the case, right? And everything I'm going to be talking about today comes from her tweets, right? So if you read Kate Welch's tweets, you see what's happening in her life very directly, right? Now, I read her tweets because I am very carefully monitoring Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition. It is, from a hobby perspective, it is the most important and interesting thing there is to me. I care deeply about Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition. I care, and I will take any piece of news I can get from it, right? Now, Dungeons and Dragons 6th edition has not been formally announced, but I also pay attention to the industry, and Pathfinder 2E showed that Paizo was working on Pathfinder 2E secretly for 2 years before it was released, right? So monitoring Wizards of the Coast can give information on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, in my opinion, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I'm monitoring for information on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition because I want to be part of that conversation. I want to communicate to Wizards of the Coast what I would like to see in it. I want to predict what's going to be in it. I want everything attached to Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition to come to me as soon as possible, right? This is the news events I care about most in TRPG, right? So, and now Kate Welch is incredibly close to Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition because she's on the Dungeons & Dragons design team, right? So I read her tweets hoping to learn information about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. And that absolutely, there's lots of information about Dungeons & Dragons, and in my opinion, the information for Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, you'll be able to see it far before it's announced, okay? Just like you could with Paizo Pathfinder. All right. It's all my opinion. That's where we're heading. All right, here's the distinct events, all right? Kate Welch, in the last 15 months, has had 4 distinct events. Duo, she got married. Designer, she became a designer on the Dungeons & Dragons design team. This is huge. There are hundreds of thousands of designers in the world who desperately wanted the job that Kate Welch got, right? Okay, now, if you think I'm wrong about this, James Introcaso, he's a game designer, right? Last year, he had a writing credit on a book on an actual official Dungeons & Dragons book. And he had more than one post where he was like, where he would just show the picture of his writing credit and go, I can't believe this is real. It's a dream come true. So just a sniff of what Kate Welch has, you know, like major game designers like James Introcaso. Kate Welch has a job that hundreds of thousands of game designers desperately wanted to have, right? It's literally a dream come true for hundreds of thousands of people, which came true for Kate Welch, right? Okay, so she got a big win in 2018, right? Okay, all right. So we got duo, we got designer. Next, these next two, those first two, by most people's measurements, would be woo celebration. The next two are not celebration. They are in some ways, some people would consider these the inversion of celebration. You have divorcing. So Kate Welch announced that she was in the middle of a divorce on her Twitter feed. This is a few months ago. And then finally, depression. And this is why we're talking today. Last week, right, Kate Welch publicly tweeted and saying, some days I'm so depressed, it's hard to even get out of bed, right? And then she said, the reason I am tweeting this is my life looks great on paper, and I'm paraphrasing here. My life looks great on paper, but the reality is some days I'm so depressed I can barely get out of bed. I'm tweeting this because I want people to know that even when you get exactly what you want, that's not a cure for depression. Okay, so that's the gist of what she was saying. She absolutely mentioned depression, and she absolutely said that some days she's so depressed she doesn't want to get out of bed, right? Now, I don't want to talk about Kate Welch's divorce or her depression, right? But the reason I am talking about those is Kate Welch is talking about those. And I think the reason she's talking about them is she understands the importance of the position she has, and I think she understands her connection to Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. This is all my opinion, right? Those events that I just talked about, you'll see every single one of those clarified or called out on her tweet, within her tweets on Twitter, right? Everything else I'm going to be talking about is just my opinion, right? So the reason why I'm taking the time to talk today about Kate Welch's divorce and Kate Welch's depression is because, in my opinion, they directly impact 6th edition. Now, let me be super clear. I am sad and a little bit alarmed myself by these tweets from Kate Welch because I think they have the possibility that they would hurt Kate Welch's chance to finish Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. Not because anybody would remove her from the project of 6th edition. I think, Wizards of the Coast tries very, very hard to be a progressive employer. Excuse me. So I don't think they would ever remove anybody from a project because they were depressed. I don't think for a second that being depressed would make Kate Welch incapable of making Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition and being the design lead on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. It is my opinion that Kate Welch was brought in to be the Dungeons & Dragons design team, a design lead on 6th edition. Now, why would they do that, right? Why would Wizards of the Coast do that? There's some really, really good reasons Kate Welch would be brought in to be the design lead on 6th edition. So here they are, okay? 44 years of Dungeons & Dragons, every single design lead ever for every single edition is the same attribute person. White dude, period, end of sentence. Every single design lead for Dungeons & Dragons for every single edition has been the same type of person. White dude. That's a problem, okay? That is a major problem that Wizards of the Coast wants to fix. It means that every single edition of Dungeons & Dragons gets the same brush in many ways. Not in every way, but in some ways. If you have no diversity in who is building your game, in who is the design lead for your game, then you're not going to have diversity in the game generally. Okay, I think that's their thought pattern, right? So if you bring in Kate Welch to be the design lead for 6th edition. That's completely my opinion. That is a prediction I have made from I said that from virtually day one when she was hired. I was like, I think Kate Welch has been brought in to be the design lead on 6th edition, right? And that's why I'm talking about all of this today, because I care about 6th edition, right? I do not want to talk about Kate Welch's divorce and Kate Welch's divorce that she's in the middle of, which she tweeted about. I'm not saying that or projecting it. She declared that publicly, right? She made a special tweet to say, I want to clarify this because people have been asking me about it, right? And so she publicly clarified it, declared it, right? And and then also recently she declared, that she's suffering from pretty deep depression. Like, can't get out of bed in the morning, or some days she doesn't want to. That's a significant issue, right? So all this is happening, right? So I think she was brought in to be the design lead on 6th edition to fix a 44-year problem, right? From the timing perspective, 5th edition is 5 years old now. Like, came out in 2014. We're in 2019. You're talking about 4 or 5 years old. And this would be exactly the time you would start, in my opinion, work on Dungeons & Dragons Design 6th edition. In addition, if you look at her tweets, Kate Welch has said, Chris Perkins, Todd Krennic, Mike Merles has been talking to her about race, Dungeons & Dragons gnomes and combat and all this kind of stuff. And as though they were mentoring her, as though they were positioning her, right? Which would make perfect sense based on the history of the game, right? Now, I'm a huge supporter of Kate Welch being the Dungeons & Dragons design lead on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. I think it's a really good thing for the game. We do need to fix the problem of a lack of diversity, specifically in the design leads for Dungeons & Dragons, right? So basically, you need to fix that, right? That's a problem that needs to get fixed. I'm saying that, right? Some people might not agree with that. I think it absolutely does need to be fixed. It's important, right? So you're moving forward with that supposition that you want to fix this problem, right? If you bring in Kate Welch as the design lead for 6th edition, you get a lot, right? One, she's really, really smart, all right? In addition to that, she has a strong digital skill set. So nested within the strong digital skill set is a strong knowledge and capability for social media, right? And that's why we're talking about this today. I myself have worked on grand scale projects. Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition is a grand scale project. When you work on a grand scale project, you call out risks so that they can be managed before they become unfixable, right? And you set expectations, right? So she has these 2 events that have happened in her life. I think Kate Welch really does want to be, at minimum, a strong contributing member of the design team, right? So she is calling out these issues that could cause a bump in the road for her work, right? That way, it's public. And the other reason why I think she's taking the time to make these things public is she's so smart. She's absolutely brilliant, right? I think we live in a post-secret world, right? Everybody thinks they have secrets nowadays. Nobody has secrets nowadays. And the reason why is, if you are a modern member, if you're a member of modern society and you are using social media and you are, using cell phones, you are projecting information about your life with every single picture, with every single post, with every single tweet. The other thing is she does very public work for Dungeons & Dragons. If you are a design team member nowadays on Dungeons & Dragons, that requires you to be on podcasts, on camera, and at conventions almost constantly, right? So if she is sad, right, and she's going through the middle of a divorce and she is depressed, right, it would be ridiculous for anyone to think that they're going to be able to keep that secret. It's going to be hard when you're constantly surrounded by cameras to keep these kind of things secret. So rather than doing the old school thing of trying to, bear under the pressure, she is making these things public and allowing people to come and give her support, right? Support in as small things as like people just saying, I'm supportive of you. The community, right, of people who are very smart being able to maybe point her in the right direction of things that can help with the problems she's struggling with, right? So I think that one, when you're looking at Kate Welch communicating these things, you're seeing how modern people deal with modern problems, right? How they manage expectations and call out risks early, right? So the reality is, I think that Kate Welch has not given up on the possibility, not given up on being a strong contributing member of the design team. And I think that anybody who's paying attention knows that she's a strong candidate for design lead on 6th edition. I think she knows that too. And so by calling these out publicly, she is setting the table, right, to make sure that these risks are managed so that they do not become an issue for Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, right? And the other reason why I'm talking about it today is I have been on Team Kate from the beginning, right? I really think it's important that she becomes the Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition lead, right? Now, people are like, well, why does it have to be her? Couldn't it just be somebody, another non-white dude, right? Yes, the answer is yes, that could happen. But here's the problem with that, right? I don't think it's a great idea to have somebody show up, on day one of, I'm a brand new Wizards of the Coast employee, right? And there really aren't a lot of other candidates who aren't the same thing that the other design leads were, right? The other 44 years of design leads for Dungeons & Dragons, there aren't a lot of people who could do this other than Kate Welch who are on the team. So we don't want a position where somebody's walking in on day one and then they're like, hi, I'm brand new, I'm going to build 6th edition, right? That's not ideal. It is really not ideal. Mike Morles, Todd Krennic, Chris Perkins, these people have invested time and effort and energy and knowledge and wisdom into Kate Welch, right? She is being built up. She's being bolstered. She's being prepared for one of the most difficult tasks in all of tabletop games, period. I think it is the most. I think designing a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons is the most difficult task in all of tabletop games, without a doubt, right? Excuse me. So this is an issue, right? We really need this. So the reason why I'm talking about this today is I am excited that Kate is calling out these risks early on, trying to manage expectations so that a grand scale product can continue, right? I think she's trying to maintain her position to be the Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition design lead, and even just more practically than that, a functioning great member of the team, of the Dungeons & Dragons design team, right? Which she is. She's a valuable member. She has been contributing to multiple books this year, right? She's contributed tremendously to the overall presentation and the social media presence of Dungeons & Dragons, right? She's been on lots of podcasts, lots of shows. She's been to lots of conventions, right? All of that shines brightly and helps to build the Dungeons & Dragons brand. So she's already bringing value, right? And so she's just managing risks, managing expectations to deliver what needs to be delivered, right? And I'm very glad and thankful for that, right? The only thing that has me slightly concerned is if she is not happy, right? It brings up the question of, is Dungeons & Dragons one of the things that is causing, if she's suffering from depression, I shouldn't say she's not happy. If she's saying I'm suffering from depression, is being on the Dungeons & Dragons design team causing that, right? We don't know the answer to that. No one knows the answer to that. There's a really good chance that Kate Welch doesn't know the answer to that, right? Because depression can be a complex thing. We don't know what is causing her depression, right? Nobody knows that. She may know it, right? But there's a good chance that even she doesn't know it, right? And so I absolutely want Kate Welch to be the design lead on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, despite those last two events, divorcing and depression. I don't think those disqualify her in any way. Kate Welch is incredibly intelligent. capable person. Neither one of those events would make her incapable of being a tremendous design lead for Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, right? But what could is if serving on the Dungeons & Dragons design team is stealing joy, is stealing happiness, is causing depression for Kate Welch, then even me, like, as much as I care about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, I would be like, nope, like that, no one should ask another person to sacrifice their joy for their my personal gain. All right, here's the thing. I'll say this. If Kate Welch is the design lead on Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, Scott Garibay gets a personal gain, right? I get a tremendous game that gets built with true diversity, right? With more diversity than has ever been delivered in any edition of Dungeons & Dragons. I personally gain from that, right? But it's not fair for me or anyone to say to somebody else, I desire personal gain, and I want you to sacrifice your joy, your happiness, your stability, right? Maybe not stability, might be going too far. Your joy and your happiness for my personal gain, right? That's too much to ask, right? So I am really, really hoping that is not the case, that being on the Dungeons & Dragons design team is not part of what is causing Kate Welch to be so depressed she doesn't want to get out of bed in the morning, right? We don't know that. Nobody knows the answer to that. That will only come out in time, right? If she continues forward and, then we'll see what happens, right? But the reality is, the reason why I'm talking about this today is I care deeply about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. I think Kate Welch cares very, very deeply about Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. And I think she tweeted these things because she's trying to help people understand the current situation of where the game is, and she's trying to give people information about herself, right? Because she is braided with the future of Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. She is very, very close to the future of Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. So the whole of this is that when you build something as grand scale as Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition, or even when you prepare to build something like that, you have people, processes, and tools, right? And you will hear no end of people talking about the processes that are used to design Dungeons & Dragons. There are there are nonfiction books galore written on how Dungeons & Dragons was designed and is being designed. There is no end of books. There's Art and Arcana is all about the art that Dungeons & Dragons was built with, which is a tool that was used to build Dungeons & Dragons. You will hear people talk nonstop about the processes and the tools that are used to build every single edition of Dungeons & Dragons. Today, I have talked about some of the people who are building Dungeons & Dragons, specifically Kate Welch. And the reality is, we would love for everybody to be like, well, we don't, it seems odd to talk about divorcing and depression in the building of Dungeons & Dragons. But that is part of what builds Dungeons & Dragons, because people build Dungeons & Dragons. And we, as people, bring our whole selves to our labor, right? And Kate Welch is bringing her whole self to her labor. And I, for one, really applaud her openness and her honesty in telling us, this is where I'm at, right? And allowing there to be a chance that the community could aid her, right? And I also really appreciate that she's being open so that we know where everything is going, because we care so deeply about this game. I appreciate it. So I'm very excited, and I'm excited that she's being so open and honest, and I think it's a good thing. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.